If you have spent any time around gun people, or on gun groups, on Facebook, or Reddit, or whatever social media cesspool you happen to be discussing gun stuff on, you no doubt have run across the debate on how far should you be practicing handgun shots. Should you practice 7 yards and in because the FBI says blah blah blah? Should you practice 300-yard headshots because the Vegas shooting? What if I told you both sides have merit and both sides are right? One of the coolest things about working in a gun shop thus far is that I get paid to talk about guns, which is kind of weird. So one of the things that I like to do differently than a lot of gun shop staff when I was on the other side of the counter is I actually shoot guns, which gives me a little bit of first-hand experience to talk about gun stuff. So that's kind of cool. But one of the biggest debates that we see in the shop is how far should you be practicing? There's the 15 yards and in group that says that it's absolutely pointless to practice shooting anything past 15 yards because if you're shooting past 15 yards with a handgun, it's probably no longer self-defense. Then you have the guys that are like, well, one well-placed shot during the Vegas shooting could have taken that guy out, which is true, but we'll get to why maybe that doesn't make as much sense as it sounds on paper here in a second. It's starting to rain. We're going to move. Ain't no shit got real when I invite you on the porch to talk about it. But anyways, no, it's raining and whatever. It's easier to film out here. So we're going to be talking about this from the standpoint of a 9mm. Now, why 9? It's not that I necessarily think it's the be-all, end-all, best caliber ever made. It's just a very common one, and it's what I carry as well. 9mm is a pretty impressive caliber, especially when you do start wanting to reach out past normally accepted ranges for defensive shooting, past 15 yards. 25 yards is easy. I zero my red dots for 25. It's pretty easy to shoot at 25 if you practice it. But stretching shots out to 50, 60, 70, 80, even 100 yards is not as hard as many of you make it out to be. So the question then becomes, why should I? It goes from that, why should I practice at longer ranges, to why shouldn't I? If a given tool has the capability to reach out further than you're practicing with it, if you are doing, fist-sized groups, super lightning fast at 15 yards, with very little effort, then why not push out further? Why not start trying to get those same size groups in that same time frame at 25 yards? Because something statistically is the most likely thing to happen, I think a lot of people get complacent. Anything, though, realistically, could happen. And I know people say, well, if I'm shooting past 25 yards, then I'm just going to grab my rifle. That's great, if you have your rifle. Now, for most of us, we have a pistol. Our rifle's at home. And if you're leaving it in your vehicle unattended, that's another issue, and I'll link to a video where I tear that whole thing apart, and it's irresponsible and stupid, and I probably don't like you if you do it on a regular basis. But for most of us, this is what we have. So why would I want to limit my skill set, my proven skill set that I have proven under time pressure? Why would I want to limit that to 15 yards, or even worse, 7 yards? Why wouldn't I push it to 25 at a minimum? Why wouldn't I see if I can get those 50-yard hits or 75-yard hits? So I think it becomes more a conversation about this tool can do X, Y, and Z. Why am I only practicing doing X with it? If you get proficient at 7 yards, go to 15. If you get proficient at 15, move to 25. Maintain those standards at those distances. Sure, when you go out to a range day, maybe start close and work your way out, or start as far out and maybe that doesn't work, so bring it in until you're hitting those proficiency standards and then push it back out. I don't know. I'm not telling you how to live your life, just giving you something to think about. But I do think it's important, if you have the facilities and opportunity to do so, try putting some on steel or paper at 50 yards. Try putting some at 75 yards, 100 yards. See what you can get. It's not as complicated as people make it out to be. So the tool can do it. It becomes more about the shooter. Now, if I may be so blunt, I think a lot of the reason that we get complacent and we say, well, we're only going to shoot these shorter ranges, is because people aren't doing that great at 7 yards. People aren't doing that great at 15 yards, and it's an unpleasant conversation because I used to be there. First time I put myself on a shot timer, I thought I was pretty quick. I looked at the timer and I wasn't. I looked at the paper and I really wasn't shooting that great anyway. So it became something I needed to practice, and it was an uncomfortable truth that I had to realize for myself. And if you go back and look at my older videos, you can see the progression as I started making it more of a priority to shoot better, shoot faster, shoot more accurately, whatever. So it's an attainable skill. If I can do it, then most people, I would argue, can. With a forearm injury and 3 kids to raise and a full-time job and then a full-time job, I don't know what to call the channel at this point, hobby, whatever, 30, 40 hours a week doing the channel stuff. So if I make time to do it, and arguably it's easy because I walk about 100 yards from my house and I can shoot. But the reality is I'm putting in the time. The other thing that I'm becoming more and more of a fan of, and I haven't brought you the full review yet just because I've barely scratched the surface of what this system can do, but I will link to a little demo video I made for the shop over on their channel. The Mantis system makes dry fire fun again. The Laser Academy thing from Mantis, you could easily spend probably, I'm going to say roughly $500, $600 on this Laser Academy Mantis Blackbeard combo to let you do all sorts of dry fire with your rifle and pistol and have a good time with it. The $600, it used to be a lot of money to just practice doing dry fire when you could get a case of 9mm for $160. But now, $600 makes a lot more sense with the ammo climate that we're in. So even I can't find ammo, that's getting to be less of an excuse. And even if you don't have the Mantis, there's a variety of dry fire drills you can do with your gun and some snap caps and have a really good productive practice session without shooting the first live round. Remember, these skills can be built during dry fire and confirmed during live fire. So a lot more affordable way to do it than a lot of us did with strictly using live fire. But anyways, I'm getting off on a tangent. There are ways to practice. It just depends on how much of a priority it is to you. Don't get complacent. Don't think, well, that's good enough. Nobody wants to get shot in the knee, so that'll probably stop. Maybe. I mean, I can reasonably agree with you. Nobody wants to get shot in the knee. The issue is getting shot in the knee enough to stop a fight, or the foot, or getting shot at, period. So where do you draw the line? The ability to make fight stopping anatomically significant hits is what stops these fights a lot of times. So practice till you get to the point where you can do that under time pressure, that you can do that under a cardiac load. You've just run, you've just done some calisthenics, whatever. Can you still, at the sound of that beep, draw your pistol and put the rounds where they need to go? I think that's important. It's something that I constantly have to work on. And I would argue that we're all better off for the more stress we put ourselves under out here. No, it's not a gunfight. I know somebody's going to say, there's no beep in a gunfight. You're right. It's the closest that I can get to having an unpredictable go signal, if you will. I don't control the beep. I just hit a button and wait for it. I know it's coming, but I don't know when. So I know a lot of old timers, there's no beep in a gunfight. You're right. That's the best thing I got at this point in time that I can do on my own. So, and I would argue that it's still better than just doing slow fire where you set all the terms, because defensive encounters, it's normally the other guy setting the terms, the location, the time, the odds, all that. We just respond to it. So putting yourself at a disadvantage in training is a sound practice, in my opinion. So there it is. Kind of went down a rabbit hole. Should you practice far? Should you practice close with your pistol? Both. Get your hits and then move out. When you can get those hits reliably, predictably every time, move a little further out. Next thing you know, you'll be taking 500-yard shots with a Ruger LCP. No, I don't know. I don't know how far you can stretch these things, but I'm still working on it. I have reasonable confidence that I can put about 90% of my shots on target at 50 yards with a Glock. When I go to something like my M9A3, that goes up. I would bet money I'm going to make shots at 50 yards with the M9A3 every time. So obviously, not every time, but I'm cocky, foolish, confident enough to put money on it. And then 75 yards, I can do it. I'm just not going to risk ammo funds to do it. So there is that, guys. We're all learning. This is just my thoughts on it. If you agree, disagree, put them down in the comments. Super scientific conversation we had today here on the front porch. And this is water, for what it's worth. I'm from Georgia. I know y'all think something else. It's also your reminder to hydrate, because a lot of y'all don't drink enough water. Anyways, stay safe, keep shooting. I'll see you next time.